Hello, folks, to the Community Curation Podcast. I am your host, the Gothic Storyteller, and with us is Krypton246, aka we're gonna throw out your name here, Ryan.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay,
fine.
okay,
I'm
that's
okay
fine.
with that.
I forgot to even ask you that. I am so sorry.
No, it's
That felt
okay.
very unprofessional. Welcome in, folks. Welcome in. Uh, we are here with the one and only Krypton TV, or no, not TV. God, I'm really botching this. I had a whole freaking opening. You talk about being nervous. I should have sat there taking shots. Uh,
No worries, no
how are
worries.
you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. I love it when the guests are super excited to be here.
Yeah.
And of course, I was lurking in Nikki's stream today, and a little bit of a spoiler for the later month. Nikki will be joining us. So
Yes.
when she got all happy and she saw me, I was all like, we're gonna see each other like in 2 weeks. So like, thank you, Frisky Panda, for the follow. So Ryan, Krypton. I have to ask, where did you get the origin of your username on Twitch?
So Krypton comes from a point in my life where I'm sure you've heard of Smallville. I was heavy into Smallville at one point, and around that same time is when I created my gamer tag, my Xbox gamer tag. So I was looking for something Superman related because I was just deep into Superman. Um, anyway, we
It
yeah.
took me a moment, and I'm all like, wow, I think I need
so
another cup of coffee.
so when we created the Twitch channel, I just went ahead and went with my gamer tag. So
Okay, you're a big Smallville fan then, right?
yeah, I love it,
Uh,
love it. It
the
was one of the uh,
yeah. Did you do you follow what is the actor's name? Michael Rosenbaum,
Michael Rosenbaum,
the Inside of You, and
Inside
Michael.
of You.
Yeah.
So good, so good.
So
It's one of
so
my favorite podcasts.
so then you listen to Talkville, do you?
Yeah, I've heard a few episodes of Talkville. I've fallen off of podcasts a little bit recently, so I haven't listened to very much of it. But yeah, really, really good.
I need to get into that. I love watching Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Thank you for the dramatic pause, everyone. But but yeah, I love listening to that podcast, especially when you had Tom Wallington on there, and I'm over here like, yeah, what happened to that guy after Smallville and after I think doing the fog? It's like that man went away,
Oh yeah.
and but he was still doing work. But we're definitely not plugging another podcast or two on here, but definitely go check out Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum and Talkville with Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Wellington, where they go through each episode of Smallville and everything. They're going
Yeah,
chronological order, I believe, right? It makes sense if
I
they
believe
did.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been a Twitch streamer, or have you previously streamed before Twitch? That should be
I haven't.
you.
So a little backstory. I was working as an optician. I was an optician for about 8 years, selling glasses,
Mm-hmm.
lenses, and got let go from my job. Was looking for some kind of like other source of income, and so I started making T-shirts and selling them locally for businesses and things like that. And so while I was working from home in this back office, and I just needed something to put on to pass the time. So I started looking up like game walkthroughs, and then that just eventually led me to Twitch. And it just I one of the first streamers that I ever started watching consistently was the Father Time, and in Father Time stream is where I met Layla. And from there, I just got the inspiration to, you know what, I think I want to start streaming. And so, yeah, the rest is history.
So
So,
not only did we just get Krypton lore, but we also got Layla lore also too.
yeah, yeah.
So go back to listen to our episode where I did interview Layla. Don't ask me what number it is. I interview way too many friends. It's season one of the recording and everything. Definitely go sit there and check that out. You got some bonus content, from that,
Yeah, thank you.
just from talking about this. So like one of the big gimmicks of your stream is obviously comic books. You got one right there, and you got a whole shelf and everything.
Yeah.
What is the comic book that you brought for today?
Today is Infinity War issue number 1, and this storyline is big inspiration for the third movie on my list. And of course, we'll get into all of that. But I
Wow,
figured it
I
was
wonder what
fitting
that could have been.
considering.
I wonder what that third film could be.
Yeah.
It's
So
Blade. It's Blade, folks. Blade's his third
yeah,
film.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, when did you stumble into becoming a comic book fan? Like, how did you find this love, this passion for the medium?
So as a kid, I grew up in a single parent household. So it was me, my mom, and my sister. Um, because it was a single parent household, we weren't exactly wealthy, right? We did
Mm-hmm.
grow up, you know, needing for things at times, but aside from that, we would spend an entire summer with my grandma, and so in San Antonio, and so she would look for things to do with us, just like not, that weren't expensive. And so one of the things that she did with us very often was go to the library, and we would walk down the street, we'd go to the library, and I started picking up these graphic novels that were essentially collections. The ones that I initially started picking up were collections of Jay Garrick Flash and just
That's
like
a golden age Flash too.
original,
Yeah.
yeah, golden age comics essentially. And so I started getting really intrigued by it, and I was like, I need more. I was like, Grandma, can I have some more? And so one of the comic books that I first ever started reading consistently was Ultimate Spider-Man, and I think that released in 2000 or 2001, so I would have been about 10 or 11 at the
Yeah.
time. And it was basically like a revamp of the character. It was like a modern telling of the origins, and so it was kind of like I was getting to read fresh. I was getting to read like a Peter Parker, but like going to school at the same time I'm going to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was that's what really like drove the love for it. And so
I know that line
Ultimate
very,
Spider-Man
very
will.
well. Well, the early bits and everything, I fell off
Mhm.
after a few, like, because I would get them as like the trade paperbacks at the.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember when like reading was cool, kids, and you had the Scholastic Book Fair? That's how I got my
Mhm.
hand on that one and everything. And I think it was
Yeah,
Volume 3
yeah.
where you fought Doctor Octopus and Craven, and how
Mhm.
Craven would build
Yeah.
up this big old fight and then get his ass kicked like that. I love that and everything. That
So
was
good,
that was
so
a
good.
great one and everything. And I think I fell off right before they introduced Venom. I think I fell off right
Oh,
there.
okay.
I just couldn't
Got you.
afford them and everything. But
I feel
library,
that.
library, folks, this is your plug-in to sit there and use your local library because
Absolutely.
libraries don't get used a lot. Really, reading doesn't get used a lot. Fucking read a book. Read a book, everyone. Put down your video games. I know I'm
Please
on
do.
fucking Twitch and I'm committing a sacrilegious thing. Put down your fucking video games. Join Layla's book cult. I mean club. Um, and expand the imagination. Use your mind. Uh, and it's also kind of funny that you mentioned too that comic books was like the way it was like it was a cheaper medium, and now I'm thinking about it today. I was like, no, it's not. It's like how much? It's like what, $5 for an issue?
Yeah, they've definitely gone up, and it's but I collect now for the sake of collecting. I read most of my stuff digitally now just because it's easier. I mean, but I feel like that's the case with most
Do you
media.
just do that because you don't really want to bend the spine or anything? Not like
That's part of it.
I'm
That's
doing that
part
to
of
my
it.
book. Like it's like I've read this countless times and everything.
most of
But
most of my comics stay bagged and boarded. Once I bag and board them, they'll stay like that.
okay.
So
Do you have anything from your collection that you really do treasure? Like it's the holy grail in your
um
collection?
I do have one. I showed it on stream not too long ago, and it's X-Men issue number 1, which in of itself is not very exciting, but it's, I believe, 1990 Jim Lee X-Men, and
Oh.
it's signed by Stan Lee, which I didn't get to meet him, but I did. I won it in a raffle, and so
Oh.
I did get the issue with his signature, but I also was able to meet Jim Lee, get his signature on it, and then Scott Williams, which is the inker for that issue. So
That's a holy grail item right there. That's like
yeah,
one
yeah, for sure.
I'm putting in a safe crack, like a safe and everything, and the lasers
I
and
actually
everything.
what I actually do is with anything that really holds value to me, I just stick it in with the rest of my collection, because if somebody comes in and tries to steal from me, they're gonna have to take like every box essentially.
Yeah, but
Because if I put it out of the way, then they know what to look for, right? If I have it on the wall, that's priceless. Like, so I
all
try to
right.
just blend it in with the rest of my stuff.
I,
So
I like that. I like that and everything. I think probably really my only prize books that I really have that are comic book because I have a lot of prize Stephen King stuff. It's not signed by him, but I just love those books.
mhm.
Is the volume 2 of Ghost Rider, not the Danny Ketch, but the introduction of Johnny Blaze. Because folks don't
Oh,
know the
nice.
Ghost Rider used to be a Western character, and then
Hmm.
Johnny Blaze came out and they renamed him the Phantom Rider, so Johnny kept that monocle. I love that. Even though for every great issue I read, there'll probably be about 5 stinkers, or just 5 that are
Hmm.
like, oh, you're all right. I won't read you
Yeah,
again,
yeah, for
you
sure.
know. But like that series, like it had a really great start and it actually had a really great ending. Um, and I'm like over here, like one day I'm gonna go back and reread it all because that took me about 5 years to collect. You know the
Mhm.
Marvel Essentials, which they don't do anymore, which I really wish that they did. Because
I
I
did
think
too. I do too.
those are easier ways. What like I think they replaced it with what Masterworks.
I believe so. I think the only Marvel Essentials that I have at the moment, I have 3 volumes of Spider-Man, and yeah, I don't think I've been able to get my hands on anything past that. So,
They're a lot harder. I got I think 2 volumes of the Punisher. It's all pre War Journal. That one. So it's
mhm.
his OG stuff, like his one offs and everything, and in his first series. I have that one. I have the complete run of Ghost Rider from Volume 2. I have the complete run of Tomb of Dracula, which I did add to our comic book list and everything.
Nice. I saw that. I
At
saw
least
that.
read issue 1. It's a really great issue, and I love the art. And then a few issues in, it's like, oh, it kind of lost all of its writers because they didn't know who was going to be a permanent fixture on this.
Mhm.
Um, there's that, and what else did I get? I got a Marvel Horrors Volume 1, which has
Oh,
like
nice.
I think it's some Satana, Scarecrow, a few of like of the supernatural characters that would kind of come later on in the 90s for like Midnight Suns.
Mhm.
Um the Living Mummy. That was actually a really good one and everything. And I was like, why hasn't Marvel and Disney adapted these for monsters? Like they have some really interesting stories. And
Absolutely.
the Living Mummy is one of my favorite ones of like this dude can't speak because he's undead. So
Mhm.
Marvel's answer is, how do we make him speak? Oh, he just steps on a power line in a wet puddle. I was like, I love that. It works.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Don't overcomplicate it.
no, that's just peak 70s Marvel horror, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And folks, for comic book lovers, for film lovers, we're gonna nerd out even more because I know we could just talk comic books all day, but technically we are. We're gonna transfer over to Ryan's first film, which we did get to watch earlier before
Mhm.
me and Emmy had like a full blown writers, orgasm in your VC. I'm sorry. But we're gonna
I love it.
your first pick is Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Why did you pick this for your number one?
Scott Pilgrim versus the World is one of those films that I went to the movie theater not knowing what to expect, had never seen a trailer. It was just like I went to the movies and I was like, I don't know what to watch. That movie poster looks cool, and I was just completely blown away. Did not know what I was going into. Um, as somebody who's grew up loving comic books and video games, like it just immediately sold me. With the music, the music is one of the soundtracks I go back to every so often just to put on because I just adore it. The indie rock vibe,
Yeah,
it's
the
amazing.
I gotta sit there say since it's directed by a Brit, like there's a lot of heavy influence in the British indie scene and everything,
Mhm.
like kind of like your Arctic Monkeys kind of vibe and
Yeah.
everything. But I do love the music. Even the music's ridiculous, but there's some songs in there that are
Mhm.
actually really, really good. Like Black Sheep, I
Really
love
good.
that one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Same. Same.
this appeals to so much because you also play video games and you love
Mhm.
comic books and everything. I don't know too much about your music side. Was there something about this film
Um,
that also awakened that music?
It my music history is kind of all over the place. I not related. I'm in a mariachi group, right?
I was gonna
So
mention that
I do
later. Yeah.
play I do play the vihuela. I've played trumpet. I play guitar, and it's so music is something that is always like clung to me. And so when I find something that music when I'm watching something and the
Hmm.
music is the first thing that I'm attracted to,
Hmm.
it's yeah, that does it for me.
It
So
has its hooks right in you and everything.
right in me, yeah.
Are we gonna get any Scott Pilgrim inspired mariachi music now?
Maybe that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
We might have to put something together for that.
All right, and everything. So, uh, moving on, video games, comic books, and everything. Anything that you have for Scotty Boy here? Like, were there like video games that when watching this, it's like this reminded you of like childhoods of certain thing?
Yeah, there was a lot of Zelda references. I did Link to the Past is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain cues in the movie where you'll hear the Zelda theme play or little sound effects, and those are things that immediately I caught on to. And so
I didn't even know
anytime I
that.
watch this movie, anytime I watch this movie, that's one of the first video games that pops into my head.
Well, fuck yeah, dude. Like, I didn't even know that. Like, and I covered this for a whole
So
nother podcast and everything, and we never picked out the sound designs for it. Like, I know like it has some of the comical traditional like when Scott would defeat an evil X and they pop in the coins and you get the sound
mhm.
effects, something that could be maybe Mario Bros or just your normal like NES game and anything. But yeah, no, I did not. That's a great year. That's a great.
Well, when the movie opens, they do the little tag across the sky, and it says something like somewhere in Toronto. And as it's opening, there's a Zelda song that like little tune that plays right at the beginning of that. So
Holy shit. Well,
yeah, so at the very start of the movie, that was one of the first things I noticed.
okay,
So
okay. Ryan obviously has an ear for this and everything, and
yeah,
even I'm like over here. It's like I've watched this movie a good number of times, and I never even picked that out. But also too, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really a big Zelda fan. I love Ocarina of Time. I think it's a beautiful game. Fuck off Majora's
so
Mask. I can't do that. That's too much stress.
so I actually never played the 64 Zelda games growing up.
Hmm.
And just recently, Layla can can attribute to this. I tried Majora's Mask and jumped straight into that. Didn't go into Ocarina of Time. I straight into Majora's Mask, and I have to say, I've never been so. I've never had a game fill me with so much anxiety and dread.
Yeah. It,
Like, it
especially if
was
that's your first one. Like, yeah.
yeah
I feel like
I struggled.
Ocarina of Time is like a nice training legs because the world's not ending
Mm,
too soon. It's gonna end, but like pump the brakes. You can stop and look at the Deku Tree and enjoy
yeah, yeah,
all the wonderful intricacies of what's like a very basic fantasy game, and yet it still holds magic, to this
mhm.
day. And I guess we could sit there and say that about Scott Pilgrim. It holds a lot of magic because even
It
watching
does. It
it
does.
again with you, I was like, holy shit. It's like it's not the same wow as the first time I watched it, but every time I see this,
Mhm.
it's like, oh my god, this reminds me so much of like my teen years when I was like a mall rat and everything. That's what this film
Yeah.
reminds me of, and
It I don't know. It just same thing. It holds a certain magic for me, and anytime I watch it, it's just like it kind of takes me back to a point in my life where what year did the film come out? Do you know?
it came out back in 2010.
2010. So I was right out of high school in college, and so yeah, it's just a point in my life where I was still kind of like worry free in certain capacities, but yeah, I think fondly of when that movie came out and my experience with it, and yeah, I love it.
It's definitely like one of the best, like kind of like youth romances, which for one, it gets just pulled apart of like, oh, Scott didn't deserve Ramona, didn't deserve this, didn't deserve that. And it's like, but like back then when we watched it, yeah, the carefreeness, the no worries, like to us, that's what we
Mhm.
wanted. Like,
Yeah.
I think any girl wanted their Scott, and then any guy wanted their Ramona.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
obviously, as much of a douche as Scott is, he did not deserve Knives or Ramona. Like, he didn't deserve any of
Yeah.
them.
Poor Knives. Knives got the shit into the stick in that movie. So
And then of course she goes and she dates what the hell's his damn name?
young Neil.
Young Neil. There you go. And like I'm like, kind of feels like you're dating like your ex's younger brother. At that point, it's
Yeah.
like it kind of gives you like
Yeah.
a bit of an ew factor. Like I don't know if anyone else got that, but yeah,
He was the rebound to make Scott jealous.
yeah.
So
And then of
yeah.
course when
But
she dyes her hair, she does like the whole
mhm.
new makeover.
Yeah.
Not calling out
It
anyone
was
in
insane.
chat.
It's also a very quotable movie for me. There's
Hmm.
just certain lines in it that me and some buddies will just throw out every now and then. Like, and sometimes they don't even seem funny on the surface, right? But whenever the lead singer and guitarist is freaking out about the concert, and he's like, "Is this a nightmare? Is this a nightmare?" And then Scott at some point later on, he's like, "This is a nightmare." And I say that all the time. I'll be somewhere like me and my buddies, and I'll just be like, "Oh no, this is a nightmare." And it's like it's stupid little things like that, but I love it. And or when Knives gets punched by Brandon Ruth.
He
And
knocked out her
young Neil's like,
highlights.
he punched the highlights out of her hair. Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. So
I fucking love that one. So the pick up that one because that whole scene, Knives getting the
mhm.
highlights punched out of her hair, Brandon Routh having vegan powers that turns him into practically Superman.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
the,
then you have the vegan police with the little Punisher cameo.
yeah, with Tom,
That's yeah,
it's Thomas
Thomas
Jane,
Jane.
and I could never remember the actor that is right next to him, but I always remember him as I think he played Chico in the Boondock Saints 2 and everything because he
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
replacement for Rocco and everything. And like I was always sit there see them and like they're like over there labeling off like every vegan role that Brandon Routh's character has broken and
Mhm.
everything. And like it's like what is this like creams, eggs, and something bitch, and like they proceeded to take away his power.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, at the
Scott
very end, he's like, "Chicken's not vegan." It's great.
and
But
then
I did go recent. Oh, go. Sorry.
continue.
I was just gonna say recently, after watching it, probably in the last year or so, I went and read the manga or the graphic novel for it,
Hmm.
and I that was my first experience reading it, and I didn't realize how many scenes and how much of the dialogue is one for one. Like, of course, they drew inspiration from it, but they really did their best to put this into movie form as like authentically as they could or as genuinely as they could.
Yeah, because like there was a long volume, and I when this film came out, the final part didn't even come out. So like a lot of people, kind of like saw like the ending of which this movie had that the writer could easily go like, oh, don't
Mhm.
make that mistake, because
Yeah.
I think even probably at that time, I don't really recall ever hearing anyone sit there and say that the ending of Scott Pilgrim versus the World was terrible. I thought it
Mhm.
fit. It fit for what they were telling, even though if you look at
Mhm.
the source material, it's so much more in depth. There's so much layer in these
Yeah.
characters that
Of course it's they can only it's one movie.
yeah.
They can only fit so much into it. So it's understandable that a lot is going to be left out, but for what they did include, it was very true to the
What
story.
welcome in Raiders. Thank you guys so much again for being here. Grab your snacks, grab whatever you need to. Thank you, Dr. Mama Puma. That was pretty fast. For the raid and everything. If you got raid and run, I totally understand. But we're gonna get right back to the interview. Thank you so much. One thing that I also did want to mention was I don't think that the studio here because I'm trying to look up what it is. That it was a universal thing. I don't think that they probably would have felt comfortable trying to invest in a manga series and sequels,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I don't think it was Universal itself, but other companies have attempted like to adapt Dragon Ball. We don't talk about
Mhm.
that. Um, and
Yeah.
like and like it sit there seems like it's always hard to really adapt, regardless if it's for television or if it's for film, like adapting that, you know, for one, that style of storytelling, because mangas are very soap opera-ish with their
Mhm.
own flavor, you know, or like slice of life
Absolutely.
stuff and everything. And some of that stuff doesn't really, it's good for a reading, for a passing the time and like enjoying these characters, but compared to like the visual medium of film and television, it's a little hard without having to add something to that.
Yeah.
What did you think of the animated series that they did?
I actually have not finished it. I probably got 2 to 3 episodes in, because so this is the thing with TV shows, especially. My wife, my lovely wife, shout out to her. Me and her watch the majority of the TV shows together.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to TV shows, um, as parents of a 3-year-old, we have a really hard time finding time to sit down and watch a show together. Of course, with our schedules and everything as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we got probably like 2 to 3 episodes in, but it's really hard for us to sit down and be able to watch stuff together. And so once we start something together, we tend to try to finish it together. So yeah,
And I'm
the
guessing
the
you're
little
the
bit that I did, huh?
I guess you're the good husband that does not cheat on TV shows, of like
No,
it's like I already
I
finished it
can't.
without you, and she just gives you that look like
Yeah.
how dare you.
Yeah, no, I'll be in trouble. I'll be in a lot of trouble. So yeah, we did get to a big turning point in the show that really deviated from how the movie and everything else went, and so I was really excited by that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was really cool that they did something different with it, and I enjoyed what I saw, but I do need to go back and finish it.
I did enjoy what I've seen. I still have yet to read the manga series. That it's kind of hard to really stick to a series. It's like when I hop from book to book. Sometimes I'll read a book halfway through and jump to another book. Um, for the book readers, I know that's probably also another cardinal sin not to do, but I fucking do it. But yeah, like I just couldn't like do it. Which I'm glad that my buddy, back when we did Cinema Alley and we covered this, he's like, "Oh, I read all of them, so you don't have to." I was like, "Thank fucking God," because I don't know if I could sit there and marry my life to a book series and everything. Though at the
Mhm.
same time, I was reading Dark Tower, so I was married to that series long ago.
Yeah.
But we want to wrap this up because we don't want to stay too long on this film and everything. But do you have any final thoughts on Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
No, it's an incredible movie. It's a fun movie. There are a lot of A-list actors in this, and I think you should go check it out if you haven't.
Chris Evans cameo, one of my favorite ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. He does so well in that movie.
he's I think he's got to be one of my favorite comic book actors alive.
Same,
And
same.
before I
Absolutely.
even saw him in comic book films, I saw him in Not Another Teen movie. And
Mhm.
so when people tell me, it's like, "Oh my God, that's Captain America," I look at him, it's like, that's a dude with a banana between his ass cheeks.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That
That's
lives
great.
rent free in my mind. We're gonna
Mhm.
switch on over to one of the big imprints here, for film number two of uh, of Ryan's choice. Ryan, what's film number two? If you want to sit there and surprise the audience.
Uh, yeah, film number 2 is Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight.
So for all of our Batman fans in the audience, I know your bat ears have perked up and everything. The Dark Knight, yeah. Which I will sit there and say it's probably like the most overplayed Batman movie, but that's my
Mhm.
opinion. But like, what did you pick the Dark Knight? Like, what grasps you with
Mhm.
Nolan's middle feature of his trilogy?
The Dark Knight, I feel like, is um while I have my issues with certain aspects of Christian Bale's Batman, um one one thing that really draws me out to the movie is the casting choices.
Mm-hmm.
Um Obviously Heath Ledger is the Joker. is going to like go down in history as one of the greatest like Joker interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like it's hard to argue against that.
Yeah.
Um, some of the other ones I wrote down, like Aaron Eckhart, I think did a great Harvey Dent.
Yes.
He made me want to root for him as the White Knight of Gotham throughout the whole movie. Lucius Fox is one that doesn't get talked about often enough, but Freeman as Lucius Fox, like Morgan Freeman is Lucius Fox to me.
Yeah.
Like when I read the comic books and Lucius Fox is in there, like I'm thinking Morgan Freeman.
it
So
it's he's one of those actors that has transcended that character that now no matter what form of media you're in, you will only sit there and see Freeman play that role. Which
absolutely,
now makes me think, wow, I didn't sit there and think Morgan Freeman did a comic book film. But yeah, he did. And
yeah,
everything.
absolutely.
Um Going back to Ledger's Joker, we've had at least 3 to 4 maybe live action reinterpretations of the Joker post
Mm-hmm.
Ledger and everything, and none of them have been able to really hit the mark. They've kind of hit their own stride and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like Fuckboy Joker from the Suicide Squad. There's people that love Cameron Monaghan's Joker, which I actually think his is actually pretty damn good and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? What did he to you bring to the table that has cemented that he will probably be the de facto the Joker for probably decades still to come? Very much like Jack
He
Nicholson kind of was in the 80s.
absolutely. He took the character and he try. I feel like didn't try to emulate anything else. Like he took the character and put himself into at at his detriment. He put himself into the mindset of the character, and all of these little mannerisms and the way he says certain things or looks at a certain person in a certain way, like that's something that takes so much skill and practice, and just it's all intentional. All of those little subtleties are so intentional,
Yeah.
and it's just I don't know. I love it so much.
I definitely wish that we got more of him to maybe expand upon and everything. But like,
Mm-hmm.
there is something I do want to ask you about Heath Ledger's Joker
Mm-hmm.
when we get maybe a little bit closer to wrapping up this entry, because it more pertains towards a possibility of what he could have done for the sequel, the closing out of the trilogy. But
Absolutely.
you mentioned like all these actors, Aaron Eckhart as Harvey
Mm-hmm.
Dent. You know, like I can't think of another actor who has portrayed Harvey so well. I like Billy D. Williams; he
Yeah.
did good. Let's not talk about Tommy Lee Jones. He did his best
Yeah.
and failed.
Yeah.
I love Tommy. I think Tommy is a fantastic actor, but him playing Two Face, like you might as well would have gotten Clint Eastwood to do that. You know, Clint Eastwood also told you to
Mm.
fuck off if I was going to play something that wacky and everything. But
Yeah.
like what was it to you for Aaron Eckhart's portrayal of Harvey Dent and later Two Face?
It was just his delivery of the lines. Like the speeches can come off very um corny or self-righteous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just his delivery of it like I think at one point in the movie, Bruce looks at him and tells him, "I believe in Harvey Dent," and that's how he makes you feel
Yeah,
when he's talking about Gotham and ridding Gotham of crime. Like Aaron Eckhart just does a really good job of delivering that.
and I like in the film that when the public are kind of wondering who is the Batman and Joker gives that ultimatum, like if you do
Mm-hmm.
not, give me the Batman, then like, I'm going to kill all these hostages. And the thing is
Mm-hmm.
if we would have went through a whole film's point of view where we never knew who actually was Batman, I think this film right here, it would have been so confusing of, well, is it Harvey or is it Bruce? You know,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I and you see that also too with Bale's Bruce, where it's like if there's anyone that can take over my work, it's Harvey and everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
even Batman believes in Harvey Dent, and
Absolutely. And so when Joker is forcing or asking the ultimatum to for Batman to turn himself in, that's why it made it so believable when Harvey turned himself in. Like everybody was convinced immediately. Even Joker says in the interrogation scene whenever he's goading him about Rachel.
Yeah.
He says, I almost believed it for a second, the way you threw yourself after her. So it's yeah.
And
The interrogation scene also is one of like my favorite scenes in that movie. The tension build
yeah.
in that scene is just incredible.
And then it's heartbreaking when both Rachel and Harvey are talking to each other, and
Mhm.
she's like over here, she's all like, I'm sorry, Harvey, and I think she told him that she loved him and everything, and then
Yeah.
like the
Well,
moment,
she accepted his marriage proposal
yeah, but
right before, and then she hears Bruce come in, or Batman come in, and he's like, no, no, not me. And she comes to the realization, and you see it in her face, and you just see the acceptance, and she's like, no, it's okay. And then that's when it goes off. So
because Rachel has kind of, ever since Batman began, she has been like in this middle ground, and even like Bruce loves Rachel. He still loves her and everything, but in the first film, it definitely cemented that even she kind of knew she couldn't be with Bruce because of the Batman, and
yeah.
uh and then of course this one where Bruce is kind of struggling to get past that, and oh, maybe can they not, and then here comes Harvey, and it's all like, this
Mhm.
isn't the first time Harvey's stolen one of Bruce's girls whatsoever. Like, yeah, I haven't read too much of the comics, but I definitely know from the animated
Mhm.
series, Harvey is a fucking womanizer to a certain degree, depending on how it's written. But
Yeah.
if Harvey wants someone, Harvey's gonna get her and everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
In a kind of
I do
kind of
think that his
non-toxic way.
for sure, for sure. I think when it comes to his portrayal of Two Face, and after the transformation, there are a couple scenes where it's a little bit feels a little bit forced,
Mm-hmm.
and the makeup is jarring when you first see it.
Oh yeah.
And I know a lot of it is probably CGI. I don't know for
Mm-hmm.
sure,
Yeah.
but when you see it initially, you're like, oh, oh, like and they do build up that tension of like not showing it right away.
Yeah.
They hide it from you with cutting scene cuts and things like that. But so that's very well done. But I do wish that the Two Face portrayal was a little bit better.
I think if we got more time with them and Nolan did not kill off Harvey and
Mhm.
everything, and the Two Face character, because to me, I'm like over here, it's like, God, like Aaron does so well. He does so well
Mhm.
for his role of Harvey, and then yeah, his portrayal of Two Face is like a little bit rough and everything. I
Mhm.
think like once Two Face kind of starts coming into the picture, um, like really it's like the Joker kind of shines out of him a little bit more. Like even like
Yeah.
after he's done like meeting with Harvey and like Joker's in the nurse's outfit, as much as we remember like the whole CGI of how Harvey's face looked, a lot of us remember like, hey, remember when Heath Ledger is like dressed up in drag as the Joker, and he's like,
Mhm.
hi, and it's just his delivery, and then how
Mhm.
he would get Harvey to switch over to the dark side. I kind of really wish that Nolan just did not kill that, and maybe we could have gotten how we probably could have gotten actually a better film. Like
Mhm.
I'm one of those people, I don't like The Dark Knight Rises and everything. I'll put
Okay.
The Dark
Yeah.
Knight above The Dark Knight Rises any day, because to me it's Dark
Yeah.
Knight, right? It's The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, and Dark Knight Rises. Um,
I agree with that list for sure.
and I think a part of kind of what makes that third entry so weak, it's like you introduced two very great powerhouses in the previous entry. One
Mhm.
of them is in real life dead, and then the other one storyline is dead. And
Mhm.
it's like what, like, where do you go from this? You set up two great villains. You could have had Harvey try to have another redemption arc. Maybe Harvey
Yeah.
could try to move on without Rachel and maybe go through some type of rehabilitation. And maybe that's what sends Bruce into um the retirement of, it's all like, I'm done being Batman. I'm going to be here to help Harvey, and it's like, because we're going to get him back. And it's like, you know, you don't get that. You kind of get almost just kind of what feels more like a sequel to the Batman Begins, but not completely successfully done.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I One of the scenes that I watched it recently, or I watched it yesterday actually, and one of the scenes that stuck out to me a little bit more than I expected was it's the climax of the movie. Two-Face has also this kind of leads into this, but Gary Oldman is Commissioner Gordon.
10 out of 10. One of my favorite
Yeah,
Gordons.
he is Commissioner Gordon, 100%. But anyway, during the scene, Two-Face has Gordon's son, and he picks the son out of everybody because of Gordon's reaction to the gun being pointed at each of them.
Yeah.
And so he stands there, and because he had to tell Rachel that everything was going to be okay, even though he knew it wasn't, he forces Gordon to do the same thing to his son. And
Yep.
watching this again for the first time with dad eyes,
Yeah.
I did not expect that scene to hit me the way it did. I teared up a little bit, like my eyes welled up a little bit because I could not imagine being in Gordon's position, looking at my daughter and being forced to tell her everything's going to be okay when you know their life is in danger. Like that was a scene that just took me by surprise watching it again more recently. So
Yeah. That's definitely a different way of looking at it, through a parent's perspective. And if
yeah,
I do remember correctly, it was Batman that was going after Rachel, and it was Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon and the cops that went for Harvey, because I think they were thinking about getting him at
yeah.
the same time. And then that's when,
You find
obviously,
out Joker switched the addresses.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
oh my god, that whole scene, that whole transformation where he's like on there and like it's the it's one of the tankers that has been spilled over and it catches on fire, and then you just sit there and like see half his face go lit. Yeah, no, that does something to a man. I kind
yeah.
of
And what's interesting,
I like that they did that instead of because I think it probably in Nolan's universe, I guess the schizophrenia that maybe it's schizophrenia or maybe it's multiple personality disorders that Harvey had. They didn't do that for this. Then that it was more of it's the traumatic experience that just flat out just turned him into a bad guy and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, for
And
sure. Trauma will do that. One thing that I like that they did is if you've read Batman: The Long Halloween, I think it's The Long Halloween in which Two Face, his transformation into Two Face
yes,
is done with acid in a courtroom, right?
that's the
And
origin.
so
Yeah,
yeah, so what's really cool about that is earlier in the scene you have Harvey doing his thing. He's in the courtroom and he's interrogated, or he's got somebody on the witness stand, and he's drilling him, and the guy gets up, and you think, oh, this is it. But no, they have Harvey put a stop to it. Like he like punches him or something, takes
yeah,
the gun, and like you know it says a badass line. Does the whole Harvey Dent thing. But it's like they almost like get you like, oh, this is it, this is the transformation, and then they flip it. And so then later on when he does fall and he's face first into the gasoline or whatever it is, uh immediately, okay, now it's coming.
yeah.
And so
They
yeah, I think
definitely
it was
made
really well
him.
done.
They made him the DM the DA that you do not fuck up or fuck with
Yeah,
and everything. And yeah, for comic book fans, all those little small intricacies, if you know all the origins, if you've read all the comics, watch the animated series, because even the animated series they changed it because they didn't sit there and they didn't have where it was acid. I think it was technically
mm-hmm.
acid, but it wasn't thrown in his face like in Batman Forever or in the comics, whereas
Yeah,
that one it was an explosion and then the chemicals got onto his face and very reminiscent. I wonder if Nolan just kind of looked at that as like, let's do that. That
yeah,
has some punch with because the animated series was my introduction to Batman. Period. The whole mythos and everything.
same.
That was it to me. My my Joker was always Mark Hamill. My Batman was always Kevin
Same.
Conroy. But also too, I grew
Mm-hmm.
up with the movies. I didn't see 89 and Returns just yet. Those were a little bit later, but Forever. So Michael Goff was my Alfred. I thought he was one of the
Okay,
best
yeah,
Alfreds. Period.
I agree,
Mike
because I grew
Michael
up on
Keaton
it
does
as
good.
well, so
Yeah.
I agree. It's cemented. He's cemented as an Alfred for me as well. Um, I didn't see 89 in theaters, but I did see Batman Returns. And so yeah, Batman Returns was on in our household pretty regularly. I think we had it like recorded on VHS, and so I always had that on. Um, big Batman the Animated Series fan. I had all the action figures. Like I was just, it was that may have been like the real start of like my love for comic books. But I think like my the trips with my grandmother to the library is what really,
Yeah.
cemented that. But
The 90s, for what it is, I know a lot of people, they have like a love and a hate for the genre, or not the genre, the
mhm,
era, but like when you start thinking about comic book Saturday morning cartoons, the fucking 90s was peak. This
yeah.
wasn't
So
your Wonder Friends or whatever the fuck your Super Friends, that's what it's called. It wasn't your Super Friends.
mhm,
No, you had Batman the animated series, and then you had Superman the animated series for DC.
yep.
And
Hmm.
then on the Marvel side, you had Spider-Man the animated series, which
Spider-Man the Animated Series,
that was
and one of my favorites of all time, X-Men the Animated
yes.
Series. Yeah. So my top four were Batman, the Superman animated series, which is probably lower on the list in comparison to all four.
Yeah.
But then Spider-Man and X-Men. Yeah.
I feel like Tim Daly's Superman was okay. It was no Christopher Reeves. That's just something
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are just gonna have to give up on. Is you're never gonna have Christopher Reeves Superman ever again. Who knows? This
Yeah.
new guy really done really good with the trailer, and
David Corn Sweat, I believe,
oh my god,
is the
he
actor's
must
name for
he he
the
must
new
have
one.
been picked on a lot as a kid. Corn Sweat.
I think that's his name. I could have butchered it, but I'm pretty sure.
Sounds very Kansas
I
like.
have a lot of hope for this new Superman movie, and not to go off on a tangent or anything, but like just watching the trailer alone is like the trailer is very hope
Yeah,
filling, like just the whole vibe of it, and
I really do hope the
so
whole
yeah.
film is just a story about a boy and his dog, because seeing him get the shit kicked out of him, and then he's talking to Crypto, and he's like, "Take me home, boy," and then like a good
Mhm.
dog took his owner home, and I'm like, "Oh my
Yep.
god, why do I feel like this is gonna make me cry in the theaters?" But
Yeah,
it's
it
James
will.
Gunn.
I'll cry.
He James Gunn made us do it with Rocket and Guardians 3. And like I think
Yeah.
that's the best Guardians movie of all. Like I love the first one. The second one's
Hmm.
okay. It's
Hmm.
the weaker of the trilogy, but that third one, that was a powerhouse. And
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
it was criminal that Bradley Cooper did not get some type of, supporting actor nomination at the Oscars. Especially for
Yeah.
like all the work he did with the CGI, and like he did all this through voice, and
Hmm.
Bradley was able to sit there. Uh, I promise I can spell. Sure, you can, Emmy. But we're gonna have to wrap up real quick with this last question before we
Hmm.
move on. So with the Dark Knight, I did mention earlier, because Heath Ledger's passing and everything, we were technically
Hmm.
supposed to get the Joker in the final bit, and everything, because there's like supposed to be this whole thing that the Batman releases the Joker, and that's supposed to help set off the fight, because the Joker was supposed to go rally, I guess, his gang, and they were all
Hmm.
going to get help the police department fight Bane, which to me, I think that's baffling. Nowhere in Commissioner Gordon's mind is like, I'm not letting out a serial killer to fucking help
Yeah.
us fight a fight, you know?
Yeah.
So my thing is, if Harvey didn't die, and if Heath didn't
Hmm.
die, what do you sit there and think that possibly the Dark Knight Rises could have been? Would it still had Bane, and would they still have done the League Shadows, or do you think it would have been a totally different story altogether?
I definitely think it would have been a different story. I think that if they were gonna do a returning villain, it would have been the Joker over the League. Absolutely. I think that Joker could have, or some of my favorite storylines is when he rallies the troops and gets the villains working together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he could have brought back Scarecrow, could have introduced Bane, could have brought the League in. He could have been the driving force behind some kind of like villain um, group.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh, and
Um,
I could sit there and see Two Face in the rehabilitation clinic, and Bruce is just constantly visiting him, hopefully
mhm.
trying to reach in and like get the White Knight of Gotham City back out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would have really liked to see some like the interrogation scene, like the back and forth dialogue with maybe Batman and Arkham talking to the Joker. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just I feel like we could have had some really good instances
Kind
there.
of like what the
Maybe the
Batman did.
Joker's not the main villain, but he goes to the Joker to try to understand. You know what I mean? Something along that line.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would have been really cool.
Horror historian thinks definitely Calendar Man as a main villain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That
And
that
that
would have had
kind
seven
of
vibes. That would have had seven vibes because the whole revamp that was because someone saw Seven and they're like, let's turn this
mhm.
Calendar Man to a sociopath and but a
Yeah.
supernatural one
Um
because I don't know if that one still followed the whole thing where I think it's when winter comes he dies and then he gets reborn like on New Year's or something like that.
yeah.
I know that there was one origin where they did that. I was like,
Mhm.
oh shit.
Yeah. I think that I definitely think Joker would have been in there. I don't think that they anticipated leaving Joker out of any sequel just because of the way it ended. You watch The Dark Knight and you watch Joker's last scene, and it's basically just a little monologue, and he just like that's the last you see of him. There
Yeah.
is no like really wrap up with him, and so you just know he's getting put away. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's unfortunate. I really would have loved to see more, but given that it was like what I consider a perfect performance in his debut, I think that it's gonna live on forever. He did such an amazing job.
I think also too. I would have loved to because practically the way you almost described it was what is it? Is it? It's not Arkham Knight. It's Arkham Origins. You know,
Arkham Origins,
the,
yeah.
the Joker has like this whole hit thing, but I could sit there and see for
Mhm.
Heath Ledger's Joker, it's like, well, I can't exist without the Batman, vice versa. So even though he would set up all these guys, I kind of have a feeling Joker would be the one to kill him. And like, what the fuck's your
Mhm.
problem? It's like she got too close to
Mhm.
freaking killing my friend. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Or you bring up a good point. So at the end of the Dark Knight, like Bruce decides there's no more need for the Batman.
mm-hmm,
We need to have Harvey be essentially like set in stone as the White Knight. Nobody needs to know about what happened with Two-Face because Harvey is what drew the
yeah.
inspiration for the city, right? So because there's no longer a Batman around, I think the sequel could have been the Joker refusing that and pulling Bruce out of retirement because he cannot live without the Batman.
And do it on
He
Christmas
needs the
Day.
Batman in Gotham. Yeah. So
Make it a
that could
Christmas
have been
movie.
the Joker's yeah.
I love
I
that.
like that idea
I
a lot.
like that. Yeah, come on. James Gunn, you're listening, right? Make it happen. Make it happen. And cast Barry Keoghan or Keoghan as the Joker.
Oh. Oh no.
For our one audience member who does not like Barry Keoghan.
Yeah.
So
There she is.
so we are gonna swap on over to our final film to talk about. And obviously we made light mentions to it. You got the
Mhm.
Infinity War in the back. So
Mhm. Mhm.
do you want to sit there and share with us what is your
Comic book
final
of the day.
film? Comic book of the day.
Uh Final film is gonna be Avengers Endgame. And so the reason I chose Avengers Endgame, there's multiple reasons. One is that was the single greatest movie theater experience I've ever had. And the reason for that, I know that some people get turned off by the loud noises in the theater, the cheering, all of that. But what it was to me, and I feel like the rest of the people in the theater with me, it was the culmination of 10 years of superheroes that we were introduced to, that we went on all of these stories with the previous movies, and it was the wrap up of this era. And the things that we got in that movie, the scenes that we got, the interactions we got, it was just I watched the movie again last night, and when the climactic scenes that drove those moments in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
when I watched those again last night, like I don't exaggerate when I say like I got goosebumps all over again. The sad scenes made me tear up. Like I got all of those same emotions. And so I know we talked about it a little before stream, but the energy that was in the theater, you equated it to being at a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Like it was that
There are
same
people
type of
cheering.
energy. Yeah, like people were standing up, waving their fists, like that. If you can get people to that level, with a movie, like you've done a really good job. You've built a really good universe, and so
Yeah.
that's why that movie is on my list.
Yeah, equate it to a wrestling match and everything. When Captain America finally says Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, that moment, I watched it last night and immediate,
it's
instant
it's one
goosebumps.
of
I
those
even like
goosebump
he
moments,
said it.
like Star
Huh?
Wars is I am your father, when Vader tells Luke that big plot twist and everything. It's one of those
Yeah,
moments of like the camera is building up, we're looking at it, and it's you hear the whole music and everything just go up, and it's like Avengers Assemble, and it's like we've been
hmm,
finally waiting for him to say it, because
yeah,
I know in Age of
for 10
Ultron,
years.
they cut right to it. That's how they ended the thing. It's like Avengers, and then bam, and you're like, come
Yeah,
on, like stop blue balling us. This is a sequel. He hasn't even said it yet. Like,
yeah,
um, and Endgame is a combination, yes, of like 10 years of MCU stories going all the way to the Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man that came out in 2008 and everything.
yeah.
Which I will
Mhm.
sit there and say the Incredible Hulk is still probably one of the best Hulk films, but like it's not
Yeah,
nearly on
I
the
agree.
emotional level as Hulk, the one with
Hmm,
Eric Bana in it.
hmm,
That one, I think I did talk to Amy about that in a group chat. That's like it's practically they asked the question of what if the Hulk had daddy issues. It's like he
yeah,
would smash his father and everything. That's practically what Ang Lee's Hulk is, and that film got shit on
hmm,
way too damn early because, like, now we have films like even I think Winter Soldier actually tried to have like a meaning behind its message. Same thing with Black Panther.
yeah,
You look at Guardians 3. It's how we, even though yes, it's all in space, space, time travel, all this other stuff.
hmm,
It's how we treat animals and how we should not be
yeah,
treating each other. But also too, at the end of the day, it's family. What we'll do for those that we love. Ang Lee's Hulk was right fucking damn there. It had its fucking finger on the pulse, and people are like, yeah, you know. And it's kind of
yeah,
hard too because at that time we had quite a few years prior. We had Wesley Snipes' Blade, which really
hmm,
didn't get us in any emotions. It was a cool vampire film, you know.
yeah. It was just a badass superhero movie.
You know,
So,
some motherfuckers are always skating up ice, skating, yeah, uphill and everything. And then of course you had
yeah,
X-Men and Spider-Man, and so you come out
hmm,
with Hulk, and like Ang Lee was really trying to send a message to us about dealing with grief and anger um and yeah, without those we wouldn't have that. And while like the Avengers films, I don't really think that they have much of that, but there are like little smart, like little short like stories within this, like with Stark's
hmm,
relationship with Parker. That's one of the best ones
hmm,
and everything. Thor
absolutely.
seeking self-worth and everything, especially when like
Hmm.
he had already had lost his hammer to Hela, and now he had to go make
What?
a whole brand new
Hmm.
one in Infinity War just to have that and still not be enough to do it.
Hmm.
And then of course Endgame is where he gets both hammers back and everything. And
Yep. Yep. One of the coolest scenes in that movie is he's gone through so much, right? He's dealing with depression about how things ended with Thanos in the previous movie. He's just at the lowest point of his life. His mother's dead. I think his father had died. That
yes,
was yeah, that was in Ragnarok. Um, Loki, I think, had just previously died in the previous movie.
yeah,
So he's lost everybody that he loves. He lost his hammer, like you said. He
he lost the Warrior
they
3, which were his friends, and Lady Sif was
hmm
nowhere to be found at first.
yeah. So he's just at the lowest point of his life, and I know Thor in game Thor gets memed a lot, but like the dude went through it, and so there's this moment when they're on their time heist, right? And he goes back to Asgard, and he reaches out his hand, and Mjolnir comes and he grabs it and he comes to that realization that I'm still worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like it's an impactful moment if you're like really paying attention to the story.
I think
So
he probably has like the most development when it comes from those Avengers films and everything. Because like even then you look at how he spoke to his other comrades in the first film. It's like, oh, you mortals are so puny. And then towards the
yeah.
end of that film, he's like, okay, you guys aren't all that bad, I guess. You guys are decent.
Mhm.
You're well enough warriors. Avengers 2, he's kind of that's when they kind of felt like they sowed the seeds of just how insecure he was when Cap budge the hammer, and he's like, oh my
Yeah.
god. But then when he
And we'll
couldn't
come back
do
to
it,
that.
yeah, he couldn't do it, and he's like, it's because you're not worthy. And everyone's like, oh my god, you
Mhm.
fucking egotistical little bitch. And like, and then what
Yeah.
he goes through in all of his other films and everything, I'm sorry, the Dark World, it tried to do its best. I really wish they went
It
back
had its issues, and I really wish that the Dark Elves were portrayed
better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything.
Especially the big bad of the movie,
I can't think of his
Malekith.
name. Yeah, yeah,
Malekith, I believe.
yeah, Malekith and everything, because he's supposed to be one of the bigger Thor villains and everything. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always looked at it as like, well, didn't Thor like always kill or banish his enemies? That's why they never really came back until like a whole brand new volume and everything. And yeah, it's like the Punisher. It's like, it's like, well, what's his rogue gallery? And Punisher's like, I don't have one. I one bullet, that's enough. They're down. Like
Yeah.
I don't send
Hmm.
them to jail like fucking Daredevil does, but yeah, like you look at Thor and all that transformation, like, and then of course when Ragnarok came, that was the biggest shift in him,
Hmm.
of this whole like, oh my god, he's lost it all. Um and then of course he gets sent to the alien homeworld and he has to rebuild himself.
Yeah.
When you would think that he would have learned after Ragnarok, and then of course he let his ego go because he mentioned, I was gonna fucking put that, that uh axe thing, like in his heart, and Thanos is like, you
Hmm.
should have went for the head. And it's
Yep.
like,
Hmm.
there goes the ego. That was like the ego overtook him again. And of course I know like a lot of people are like, well, if Captain Marvel was here, like none of this would happen. I was like, no, of course not, because she would have punched a hole through him. She probably would have been
Hmm.
the only one that would have probably been able to sit there and defeat Infinity Gauntlet Thanos at one point, if everyone else was able, like if Stark would have had the technology he did, where like they switched it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For sure.
but one thing I really do enjoy about Thor 2 is that the throwback to Avengers 2 in Endgame is when they're doing the battle, and Thor obviously has both hammers, and Cap has the hammer, and
Hmm.
Thor is not insecure about this. He's like, he is worthy and everything. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's very inspirational. It's like, oh my god, Thor has come along so way. And then
Hmm.
I didn't like how they wrote him for the next sequel, where they kind of made him
Yeah.
up.
It little too. They pushed the comedy way too hard,
Well,
and it just didn't work.
it was that, and it felt like he kind of went back to being a little bit more arrogant. It's like
Hmm.
what did defeating Thanos do anything for you? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
like that should have, like, I like that he went through a whole nother transformation again where he dropped the weight, because again he
Hmm.
was still hefty Thor,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you gotta love the dad bods and everything, as Layla would
Oh yeah.
say.
Of course.
But just everything that Thor went to, and then post that, it's like, wow, he was one of the characters that I felt like they dropped the ball on. Which I have to ask you, should they have taken a few years off after doing Endgame?
I think so. I think that they pushed way too. So I will say, WandaVision is probably my favorite MCU show. One of them, at the very least, if not my favorite. Week to week, like I think the whole sitcom thing was really, really well done. I think that they built that suspense week to week. That's why I'm such a big advocate to, like, when you're gonna watch your shows, if they're being released weekly, watch them weekly, because
Mm-hmm.
to me, you get time to process the previous episode. You're on the same page as all your friends who are watching it, so you can have conversations. You're all in the same spot. But when you binge watch an entire series of something, you don't really get that time to like reflect on each episode, and so that's
Yeah,
why I personally really like the weekly release schedule, and so that's what that did for me when I watched WandaVision. But after that, I think that they just got way too ambitious,
yeah,
and they pushed way too much out way too fast, which decreased quality of visual effects,
mm-hmm.
decreased
Bequeath
decreased quality of writing.
Layla isms.
I Yeah, so I think that I think that they should have taken a break,
Yeah,
or at the very least spaced out their projects if they weren't going to take a break, essentially, like space out the projects more,
Yeah,
which I think is what they've learned their lesson, and they have talked about, like, we're only going to be releasing X amount of projects per year.
because I
So
don't.
I think that they've learned that, but it took them making that mistake.
Yeah,
So
I don't think they're gonna release Ironheart. Even though they had like I think part of it, like I don't even know if they're gonna
mhm.
release Ironheart. And that one's been talked about for years and years. And
Yeah,
um
I think at some point, I think it's still on the release schedule. I just don't remember when. I think the next movie we're getting is Captain America: New World Order, which
yeah,
is Valentine's
February,
Day, I
right?
think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Who wants to go see Captain America: New World on Valentine's Day?
I
Get us a Wanda movie or something like that.
this is me
I'll go.
talking to my wife right now. We have Valentine's Day plans, and we're gonna go watch Captain America: I Love You. So
The
yeah.
tone in his voice.
So,
But I'm trying to figure out where we could take this and everything. Really, we've expanded upon like a lot of what those main character stories were. You know, Clint went rogue,
mhm.
not X-Men rogue, but he went rogue and everything. How he struggled with the death of Black Widow. I can't even sit there and think.
Mhm.
I think also Hulk wasn't Hulk going through a kind of like
Uh,
a he
so
was going through a hulking
so
issue, right?
so he actually he did struggle a little bit with the defeat of Thanos, but what he did was he was like, I couldn't defeat him as Banner. I couldn't defeat him as the Hulk. So that's what he did. He combined the two, which was very comedic. Some people hated it, some people loved it. I didn't mind it because we get like smart Hulk, like we get, Banner Hulk multiple times in the comics. I think the delivery of it was a little bit like,
Yeah.
there was no seriousness to it whatsoever,
Because
right?
like the whole thing
So
you got to worry about when you have a Hulk, like just your regular
mhm,
one was like, is he gonna play nice? Is he gonna
mhm,
help us? Like, is he gonna
yeah,
defeat the villain here? And like of course you looked at what they did in Age of Ultron, where they were using the Hulk to sit there and fight the Maximoff twins, and then Wanda did her thing. And then of course Iron Man's like, "Come on, big boy, like let's stop this." And like, he's beating the hell
mhm,
out of them and everything. And even with the
yeah.
Hulkbuster, that still was not enough. And um,
And I think with me, with my issue with Hulk is like, it's cool that they did this, right? I think it's fine that they went that route with the Hulk, but Hulk needs to have a redemption arc or a return to raged out Hulk
yeah,
from previous movies. Avengers Endgame Hulk, right?
yeah.
When they had to use the Hulkbuster to fight him. Like, or not, did I say Endgame? I meant Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
I'm
Age of
sorry.
Ultron and
Age
everything.
of
And
Ultron. So I want to return to that, and so they need to have that climactic moment where he reverts back to that, primal Hulk.
yeah,
But they haven't done that, and I feel like it's been a missed opportunity.
I don't like
I
what
hope
they're
that they
gonna
do
do with
it
it
do it at some point.
because with She
But
Hulk, they kind of made him like almost like a dad, and then definitely at
mhm,
the end, like I could not really say spoilers because it's been out for a while.
mhm,
He
yeah,
he's all like, "Hey, I got a son," and I was like, "Holy shit!" Fucking Bruce popped out a kid on was it Sakaar?
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, God, I'm surprised I even remember that one and everything. It's been
That's good
and
memory.
that's
Nice. I
been a
like
while
that.
since I've I'm lucky enough that I remember what I had for breakfast. Like, but
Same.
yeah, like you have you know you have all these different storylines and some of them don't really hit all the way. And I definitely feel like Hulk has got to be one that they got to rectify. They have to make the Hulk terrifying again. And I feel like the only reason
Yeah,
they did what
I
they did
agree.
here was because Disney's like, we want to make him fun and we want to sell toys. It's like, you can't make him fun. Kids like to destroy shit.
Hmm.
Just let them
Hmm.
destroy shit. It's like, and it's almost like Disney's like afraid to make him into a monster. And it's all like, bruh, it's like, I've shown my little cousin back when he had communication issues and everything. He was still very young and he was kind of like a slow learner. He fucking fell in love with the classic Universal monster stuff. He did not care if it was black and white or anything. He saw Frankenstein's monster or the Wolfman tear shit up. Rah, he was into it. He loved Godzilla, and then I introduced him to wrestling. That was a bad idea, too young of an age. But
Yeah.
but they get into that. That's their thing, and um, I think we are going to sit there and wrap up the film talk. We are going to open up the chat here for a few questions and everything. We're going to only do maybe about 4 or 5 questions. So if you have any questions for Krypton, definitely drop them down right now in the comments below, and I will read them out to Krypton and everything. I would love to sit there and see a Maestro Hulk. They could definitely...
I would too. I think that I don't like, this is the problem. I don't know if Mark Ruffalo has the acting chops to give us a Maestro Hulk.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong, but it's hard for me to imagine because I've seen him so silly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard for me to imagine him so serious, but maybe
they would have to do an alternative character to possibly do Maestro Hulk and everything. Laizo has a question. Least favorite superhero movie?
Oh, least favorite superhero movie. Layla got me with a good question because, as she mentioned earlier, I'm an optimist. And I'm not a big critic. So when I watch something, it's really hard for me to pick it apart. I go with my popcorn and my little drink, right? And I 2 hours pass, 2.5 hours pass. I'm like, oh, that was fun. Like, on to the next thing. But if I'm gonna, one of the ones that I the least enjoyed more recently, and I think we've talked about it, was the Marvels. I had some hope for the Marvels. I think that it was a really good idea. I don't think that it was very well executed. Another one, and it's pretty infamous, so I know a lot of people would probably agree with it, was the Fantastic Four. This is the one with
You talk about the 05 one.
Yeah.
When Michael,
yeah,
I like that one. Michael Chiklis did a really good thing.
No, not that one. I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the 20? Is it 2019? The one with
Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch, and that Doctor Doom, I think, is probably what solidifies it for me as just like awful.
That was Barry Keoghan too.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Barry.
Oh no, there's a pattern.
That means over here writing on the board, there's a pattern. This is why he can't be Joker.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that the Fantastic Four, that specific Fantastic Four movie, is up there for me. Yeah.
Layla also has another one: lamest superhero or supervillain. There's plenty of them.
There is, and one that comes to mind immediately, but it's so bad that it's good, is the Condiment King.
Oh my god. Who was introduced in Batman the Animated Series. That was his introduction.
Yes. Yep, the Condiment King. Look him up.
Yeah. That one right there also reminded me, there was a Powerpuff Girl episode that I think they kind of parodied it, where it was like a family that could not stand the Powerpuff Girls. So they invited them to dinner, and then like they all turned supervillain on them. And like the dad, it's like a whole week leading up to the dinner, they're just like, he's like in his basement trying to like figure out something, and he just looks like this really bad, lame, generic Condiment King, which is bad when you can make Condiment King look like an A-tier supervillain.
Have you watched the more recent animated Harley Quinn series on HBO?
I think I watched all the way up to either season 2 or season 3.
Okay.
It was when Kite Man and Poison Ivy have obviously split. Harley and her together. I think Harley finally beat the living shit out of Joker.
Yeah, I think I ended right when because I'm not caught up on it either, but it was right when I think Harley and Poison Ivy. It's probably around the same time that you ended. But Kite Man is one that I was gonna bring up because he's so like, they know how bad of a villain he is. Like, they play into that. And so I love it. I love it so much. I love my bad super villains. So
the thing is too is James Gunn can take any unknown villain and make it like outstanding. Like Polka Dot Man.
Yeah.
Just the name itself is lame, but like when like you find out like, well, if I don't expel this many polka dots, something bad happens to me. What happens to you? And it looks like he had like a really bad food allergy, and I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
god! And then he has to go throw it all up, and it's like, oh lord. Cup of tea sat there and says, how would you like Dune to be portrayed in Robert Downey Jr.'s next Marvel film?
Oh man. Um
That's a loaded question.
that is it is very much. I think that they first off, I've had this question asked to me multiple times where people have asked me my opinion on Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doom. And I personally think that it's a really good idea for Marvel right now. They know that Robert Downey Jr. is going to bring in tickets, right? But
Yeah,
what it was that aside from the business aspect of it, it's the multiverse saga, right?
yeah,
The multiverse saga is what, like, when you think of the multiverse, what do you want from the multiverse? You want to see other interpretations of your heroes and your villains. And so I feel like using somebody well known, the interactions that you can have with previous Avengers or previous characters, seeing the face of somebody that they fought with and that died in battle with them, right? Like,
yeah.
that's going to create some really really good dialogue and really cool moments. And so I
Especially
think it's
how could Parker, fight this guy, and it's like Tony, and he's like, don't know him. It just shoots him. Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's what
So
Parker's got to
I
go with.
absolutely, I want to see him as, I want to see this Doom as already like Latverian, like, ruler, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in his element, like that regal. I just, I there's a lot that I want from it, but I think that I'm hoping that it's done well. I hope that it's not just a cash grab and that they really use that to bring out those really good story moments. So
10 thinks House of M with Downey and Olsen. Would you sit there and think that maybe
oh
Downey could quite possibly sit there and mess with the Scarlet Witch and get her to bring in the mutants?
yeah, I think so, especially with seeing Downey or seeing Tony's face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And oh man, that could be really good. I've never thought of that scenario with this, with what they're doing, and so yeah, I really like that. That's cool.
We're gonna do our last one. Arthur Morgan from RDR asks Ryan's most underrated X-Men character.
Oh, most underrated X-Men character. It's hard for me because I've talked to a lot of different people that have a lot of different characters as their favorite, but I feel like one that isn't like, the last few X-Men movies we've had, it's always been the Wolverine show, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, it's been great. Like, I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's been amazing, but I would really like to see, I think Rogue is a really cool character that can get really OP. I think I would. Man, you know what? I was gonna say Psylocke. Um,
The
Psylocke is another really good one.
the actress that played her in X-Men
Yes, I
Apocalypse.
agree. It
That
was Chef's Kiss.
it was. And not because of the bodysuit. Uh but
No, no. I'm trying to think of her name. I used to watch her on
Olivia Mum,
Olivia Munn. Yeah,
cuz she was
Olivia
on
Munn.
back in these days, kids, for those that did not know
Yeah,
what X Play,
G4.
yeah, G4 was. She was on the X Play show and everything. She did a couple of other shows too and everything. Gothic outing himself. Hey, like, I've had a history of outing myself on what women, what are my tastes in women. So yeah,
G4 was like the, probably where I fell in love with just like video game journalism. Not
yeah.
to go off on another tangent, but I watch a lot of like podcasts, and I've, at some point I would love to start writing articles related to stuff like that. Um, So that's why I want to build up my writing skills. And so yeah, G4. I have a big love for G4. So when I saw that Olivia Munn was going to be cast as Psylocke, I was like, that I could see that. And then it came out really well. I liked it. And so
She did Attack the Show. That's what it was, from 2006 to 2010.
Attack of the Show. Yeah.
And then apparently she was a correspondent on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I did not even know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
She did that. I'm guessing she picked that up right after G4 had closed. And I don't know what's going on with G4. I would really want them. You know what? Put G4 on Twitch.
I feel like that's to have a reemergence.
That's the smartest thing to do. You're on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's as much as, yes, we're doing podcasts and talk shows on here,
Mm-hmm.
and there are web developers, there are other artists. Fucking put G4 on Twitch. That's like a no-brainer. It's where the video game people are at. Put it there and give us Olivia Munn back. You know, like,
I agree.
You know, it's right there for the taking. It's so easy.
You heard it here first. This was Gothic's idea. So,
well, it kind of clicks. That's like, I'm on a video game streaming platform. I'm on a streaming platform that loves to play video games. G4 is your best bet, you know. But yeah, back in the damn day, we used to wake up super early to watch that, to find whatever cool cheat codes or whatever walkthrough of whatever popular game.
We'd get all of our news, and then they would show American Ninja Warrior for the next like 10 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for something that was video game like, you had to catch it within the early mornings and then within the evenings. The rest of the damn day was American Ninja Warrior, or I think they played. Do you remember? Oh my god, I'm trying to remember. They had the catchphrase "Don't get eliminated," but it was like an American dubbing.
MXC.
Yes, MXC. I think they played MXC. Yes, yeah, MXC. I think they even played MXC on there because it was on Spike. And then I think towards its later years of G4, they would also cross promote and they would do it on G4. And like, God, that makes me want to watch MXC. That's a fucking show and a half. And every day, it's like, you know, like the terrible dubbing. Oh my God, that was
so good.
That was peak mid 2000s television when they could take an old 80s 90-ish Japanese game show and they're all like, well, let's just dub it and say what fuck all. And it works and everything, you know, Mr. Itchy Scratchy. And it's like, hello. And it's like, oh, dear Lord.
And said they have a rerun channel of it on Twitch.
Oh, really? I got to follow that.
That's awesome.
I got to follow that.
Seriously.
I already followed the Bob Ross channel and I go to sleep sometimes too, that when they stream.
What the heck? That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. But Krypton, thank you so much again for being here. We had a fucking phenomenal.
This was fun.
Yes, it was and everything. See? You weren't that nervous. We got it done.
I was very nervous. But I had a great time. I really did. Thank you for having me.
Where can we find you on the socials?
So the socials, Krypton246. I believe YouTube is Krypton-246 because the first one was taken. But yeah. Krypton246.
Folks, you can follow Krypton as he does Comic Book Club in his Discord. It's slowly being revamped. It's going through a rebirth for a new 52. But, you know, I'm going to hold on to that pun because I swear to God, I've never seen a man smile so damn big at a DC pun that I
it made my heart happy, Gothic. You know the way to my heart. So,
but definitely follow him over on Twitch and everything. He's currently going through the God of War 2. By the time that this comes out, you'll probably be moving on to 3. Probably and everything. You can get all your video game needs. He plays a grand mixture of comic book based games along with like just other very popular fantasy games and everything. It's a fucking show guy to hang through. A wonderful member of Layla's community. Definitely go sit there and drop him a follow. And with that, folks, we are gonna wrap it all up.